So I'm Heike Schnotale. I'm the youngest and the last trained typesetter in Germany. I was trained in the Offizin Haag-Drugulin, and I worked together with Eckehart SchumacherGebler for the last 5 years. Yes. And I'm happy to give you a bit of an insight of what was happening the last few years, especially the last few months. And maybe I can also give you a little bit of an insight upon a possible future. So let's start with the way theory in the Offizin. But before discussing of what was probably Germany's most important and the last book crunching workshop, it is better to start at the beginning, and this goes back quite some time. So to understand why the Offizin is important to Germany, let's start this short breakthrough story. According to company tradition, the print shop's founding dates back to 1829 when Friedrich Nies acquired the Offizin and the Deutsche Offizin, which had already existed in Leipzig for more than 80 years at this point. The Naomische Offizin established a common philosophy of producing high-quality printed products and distinguished itself above all by its own type-horn printforms, including a large number of wide languages. About 20 years later, the Offizin was sold again with time to Carl Blog. And after I was saying to William Tromoli, the Offizin became Offizin Prodi. So the significant stock of typefaces and matrices of the Leipzig printing house and type foundry Karl Taumitz came into the company, and the company was called Offizin Prodi, as I mentioned, and it continued the high quality standards of its predecessors. It's continued be focused on foreign languages, especially what is back? Okay. Actually something as it's the controls. So the book design was also progressive, and it was made with modern time for trainers, type artists, and around 1900. The many important German publishers and magazines such as Insel Verlag, Redkalam, Pan, Robert, or Espresso had their magazines and books spread by globally. The printing house received many awards that emphasized its importance, and however, with the end of the World War and the ensuing economic crisis, the company ran into serious difficulties, and a merger with the merger with the rich and modern printing house Haag then gave the company the name of Haag-Drugulin. And despite further economic difficulties, the Offizin retained its good reputation, and to which Ernst Kellner contributed in particular as technical and artistic director. So, then the second World War came, the Offizin was nearly completely destroyed, but it survived. And the print shop recovered again, was first expropriated and then converted into a state-owned enterprise in Russia to sort of enable united with other print shops. So, was Aris Walter took over? Where is he? There he is. Yes, took over the artistic and technical management of the print shop, and in the 1950s, in a wave of renaming companies by the socialist government of the GDR, Offizin Haag-Drugulin became Offizin Anders Nexel. The Offizin still had a very big name and was more than once honored with prizes for its products. The last type specimen book from the late 80s had nearly 700 pages of monotype. Yes. So the end of the GDR again threatened the end of the print shop. And in 1992, however, Eckehart SchumacherGebler was able to buy up the original parts of Haag-Drugulin from the conglomerate of print shops after a petition of 50 German publishers to save the company. So it was really interesting. 50 German publishers voted that this company has to be saved. So, together with the significant holdings from Eckehart SchumacherGebler of monotype fonts, and in particular the outstanding collection of monotype matrices and machines, the Offizin Haag-Drugulin was again split up with a unique collection of old and new typefaces, fonts from East and West Germany, and the most technical modern possibilities from the world of monotype. So, on SchumacherGebler's initiative, the Museum for Druckkunst was also established in Leipzig, and now a Senate has been passed. And this brings us to the second part. So, Mr. Eckehart SchumacherGebler is still personally known to many of you, and he was an outstanding person who achieved significant things in his 88 years of life. He was a preserver, a promoter, and a researcher of the history of type. He was a passionate collector who left behind far too many exciting projects that were started and never finished. It is not without reason that innovations were given to him, and it is not without reason that he was awarded the Gutenberg Prize of the City of Mainz last year at long last. So, I have an extraordinary amount of respect for my late boss, but, and please don't get me wrong on this, there was also a less good side to him. He found it definitely difficult to make decisions, but without him, decisions couldn't be made. He was more of an artist and a scholar than a businessman, and he was stubborn, often selfish, and there was only one way of doing things, and it was his way. So he unnecessarily broke the relationships with the Museum for Druckkunst and moved to Dresden together with the Offizin. The print shop lay dormant for except a few regular pastimes. The 3 to 4 employees could already see the ship slowly sinking. So, then in 2018, I turned up unexpectedly. I had finished my studies in graphic design in photography in Austria with the realization that, unfortunately, there was probably hardly any money to be made with analog photography. And I was looking for something else, something analog again, and I happened to stumble upon typesetting. The typesetter, however, is a profession that can no longer be trained in Germany. But the typesetter from the print shop in Mainz encouraged me to look for an opportunity to get into this art, and through the Association for Preservation of Traditional Printing, in German it's Verein für die Schwarze Kunst, I was referred to Dresden. And Eckehart SchumacherGebler was a little bit surprised because I didn't just want to be taught for a few weeks. I wanted to learn properly. For 2 years, I became the apprentice of the OHD, and this is special commitment of the authorities. And since Mr. SchumacherGebler had less time for an apprentice, I was placed at the side of typesetter Pia Möcker and had a lot of freedom to try out my own ideas as well. I worked in hand typesetting, and I also was trained on a monotype keyboard, and I learned the details of the craft and gained experience and knowledge that can only be gained through active work. I inventoried the massive disorganized stock, and I listened to Mr. SchumacherGebler's type stories and learned about the history of typefaces and the craft. So I have some photos to you. This is the last day when we were allowed in the building. Didn't tell me that. It's a new salon. The last 2 years we lived on a construction site. We got new cellars to get the external warehouse finally into our own building. And it's probably 1/3 of the external warehouse what we had already in the salons. As you can see, it's a lot of type. Yeah, and yeah, these are the empty salons. This room 2 and 3, as we call them. They were just finished in January, and actually we would have been able to put the 2/3 of the external warehouse, what was left there, into this new salons. It was not possible anymore, sadly. We have here the hand typesetting department. This is just one side of it. The other side is as big as this. We have also here the monotype department with the casters and the keyboard. So, yes. So after the 2 years as an apprentice, I was taken on to take over the typesetting, as Mrs. Lucke would soon retire. Before that, however, I went to upper workshops through the Rodin Firmware of the Association for Preservation of Traditional Printing, and I got to know linotype typesetting at Gibraltar in Switzerland, and I improved my printing skills, in particular in different places. The other workshops made me realize the uniqueness of my own workplace. Nowhere did I find so many possibilities and so much material. And despite the increasing difficulties with Mr. SchumacherGebler certainly also brewing age, I stayed interested, painstakingly earned his trust, and became his right hand at the workshop. And even if our views mostly remain different, we work for the same cause at some point. The Offizin, its long tradition, and its great reputation. We employees more than often had to discuss with him that the Offizin was in the middle of the end point, because his ego just got in the way sometimes. At one point, he wanted to rename the Offizin to SchumacherGebler, because it was his name, and we were like, oh no, if you do this, we will go, because the Offizin has his name for some reason. This great name, we can't put him in. It was working like that sometimes, what makes it sometimes really difficult for him. So, but again, I stayed because the Offizin was such a great place to work at. And Ernst Kellner and Horst Erich Walter, the two great names in the company from the last century, they became my role models. And Mr. SchumacherGebler, with his standards of design and content, became finally my teacher. After 2 years of discussion, I was given permission to create a new modern website to the Offizin. The orders began to increase, and slowly the print shop came back to life. And with it, also the whole of the other employees came back. So Mr. SchumacherGebler noticed how we were trying to keep the print shop running, contributing ideas, and how we sometimes even managed to convince him of our ideas. And unfortunately, we had to witness more than once, especially in the last 2 years, that he turned down work requests because they did not correspond with his ideas to 100%. There was no plan for the future, and he knew that his children did not want or care for coming. With his death in December of last year, what anyone had already feared became true. So, many of you have probably read the very nice article at the beginning of this week about the Offizin and how it will return to Leipzig to the museum. And I'm really happy for the museum. It's a good solution. But let's say we had also a buyer who wanted us there to print again books. It was not wanted by the heirs. So the article is not a cool story. And I have nothing to lose anymore, so I will give you now a bit of the truth. The truth is that heirs had no interest in us, and in their eyes we were a waste of money. I drew up a 3-page idea paper for prospective buyers and contacted all the people who could possibly help me in any way to save the Offizin. Talks and agreements for big projects with several publishers had already been made for this year and the upcoming years. So unfortunately, German politics is not very interested in preserving traditional crafts, as you all may know, and the purchase price of the heirs wanted to unattainable heights. What I only heard in January was that Mr. SchumacherGebler wanted to have this collection, or workshop, classified as an historical monument. An application had been submitted to the authorities end of last year, and my call and the description of the situation led to quick action there. It was still a race against time because we did not know whether the heirs knew about the application and would stop it or not. Against their instructions, we rescued time and other materials from the external workhouse into the cellar rooms, at least the most important stuff, what we were able to do in like 2 weeks. The external walls was to go completely to the metal dealer first. We knew about it. Then more could follow, as we would know, and I was already mentally organizing in order to preserve the most important material until the end. On the day when the first containers were standing in front of the door and were being filled, this is just the first tool. There were more, a lot more. The Heritage Protection Authority was at the door and they said, and the application had been approved. So there was, one really erased against time. We, the employees, were then immediately dismissed and expelled from the company premises. By a sad mistake, often on the part of the authorities, however, the entire external walls was still allowed to be sold to the mail. So countless original packet typefaces from Bauer, Klingspor, Typo and other type foundries, 4 monotype machines, several linotype matrices, and other irretrievable materials were destroyed as a result. The thought of me being poured into a container still haunts me and haunts all of my colleagues. It is a sound that my older colleagues never wanted to hear again, for their history was repeating itself. So we are not simply printers or typesetters by trade. If there's one thing I learned really quickly, it's the pride that comes with our profession, and what can probably only be described as a love for the material. It is our tool and we take care of it. From the typefaces that we greet like different bold friends in the typefaces, to the machines that we carefully care for and look after and of which we know all the peculiarities and noises. To each typesetter his own bodkin, because each bodkin is different. To each printer his own key and furniture, for here too we know the intricacies of things. We are feeling a personal loss, robbed of our great outputs. So, I will show you what we have lost, because I know most of it. It's like 80%. I'm missing about 20 tons of material in this list. It would have been enough to build out like 10 small workshops. And this is what we could not save. So, after 194 years, the Offizin Haag-Drugulin shop is sadly history. A large part of the technical equipment will return to Leipzig, which is good, but this other large part is lost. Our experienced letterpress printer, one of the last tools built in his profession, will no longer work as a letterpress printer. Max, our monotype countryman, has to support his young family and is working again as a graphic designer. So not only the material is lost, but also the people with the knowledge and craftsmanship are gone. So what do we learn from this? It is all well and good that there are collectors who preserve the material, but it is not a good idea to steadily give more material to someone without a plan for the future. We see from the Z example of the Offizin that a collection that is too large cannot be completely absorbed by anyone. And if unwilling heirs come into play, preservation is even more difficult. Of course, I can speak more from a German point of view, but no one should delude themselves that politics will come and save the day. And I'm angry. I'm really so angry. I belong to a generation in which there are definitely people interested in this craft. The work of the Association for Preservation of Traditional Printing clearly shows that. But I also belong to a generation that, with a few exceptions, still has no money to really set up its own workshops. There is no support in the field of letterpress. And every time a workshop is closed, material is lost, as we can see here. Because every time something has to be left behind again for reasons of space or cost. And so it becomes less and less and less. It's the slow death of an art and craft. And in the end, it's nice when everything is archived and is used, but the material has to be used to preserve the craft and the knowledge. Where will we end up in 50 years? Will only museums have neat type then, and when they only have the most important ones that just barely fit into the archive and the budget? What are the most important typefaces or machines? Who decides this? We have already lost too much knowledge and too much material. The monotype archives will not know the Offizin Haag-Drugulin. At the end of the year, we will lose Niall Gerstenberg as the last type founder, and this without a successor. The State Museum in Darmstadt is doing everything it can to drive out the last volunteer typesetters and letterpress printers of the building, thereby exposing another large stock of typefaces and machines, and above all, the most important collection of German matrices to long-term destruction. For years, people have been calling for a solution for Mr. Gerstenberg. But who has actively done here anything? So this is the last picture of the orange sheep. I would like to ask you now, what are you doing here? I tell you, instead of moving forward, seeking shams, you are talking in circles. You hold the science program every year, of course. We listen to exciting topics and details, you exchange ideas, and then you go each a separate way. And it's not enough. I want you to do more, and I need you to do more. Stop talking, and together, and become active. So this is the problem I'm talking about. And you know all of this. You know about this problem. And where is the solution? And I would like to propose an idea to you. For a financial patch, everyone who has neat type and letterpress machines and other printing materials, whether a museum or private, should be able to contribute to it. It is a safeguard and insurance. Because everyone who owns typefaces, heterostones, machines, and so on, will want to preserve them. And when the time comes and the workshop has to be sold, a prospective buyer with a good concept can be helped from this time to buy the workshop. Or a museum can be helped to find the financial means to preserve an important collection of type history. So stop thinking with borders and stop thinking different museums cannot work together. You need to work together. This is not about just preserving the material. It is more about how we can help, how museums can help to keep the craft and the knowledge alive, and not only in the museum, but outside. Think about this proposal. Think even further, and let us find other ideas together. And then don't stop with the idea, but start there. Let the idea become reality. Let's make sure this important cultural artifact, this part of our shared human heritage, will survive for my generation. Finally, take action, and let us take this action together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's touching you talk and the very very difficult to answer.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge of a very specific kind here. Launch what we puppet for this. So how do we do this? So we have the possibility of talking in this round, in this corner. We have, of course, the need of having smaller parts of us to go deeper into this talk. I feel guilty when you talk about it, on the one hand, and not finally guilty on the other hand. But this is a talk that would have to be given by Dorothy Ader and Katja Schneider, as far as it belongs Offenbach in the period of the last 3-5 years. Um, I doubt to go deeper into it right now. I should be better prepared. I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
And it's fabulous what you showed. It is a sort of last generation message you're giving, and very, very important. I can easily imagine that there are very, very different aspects having to do with the different situations of a museum, the museums, the people being involved in type casting and the whole cinema. But yes, please, on that.
I beg your pardon, my leg is when you got back at home, there's a great busy with Luxembourg, and I want to bring back to the witches of the SGN. Ellen, do you remember the witches of the ATM in 2020? We will be already discussed this problem. And why did we found the ATM? Thank you. Why did he why I'm excited about that. No, it's because thank you, like, for this presentation. And we remember we calling the AKM because we were already conscious about this problem, and we tried to get some European money from the European Union, and we failed with our demands. Could you do really Culture 2000 was the name of the program. And afterwards, we counted the ATM. It was great, the exchange and so on, and the general meetings but it was a group who was very heterogeneous. And I remark 20 years later, I'm not sure, I'm talking to Ellen because I know him over 20 years. And in my job, 20 years, I started my job at the printing museums with the foundation of the NEPM in Luxembourg. So I know what I'm talking about. So I'm talking to Ellen because it was also for the beginning on.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not yes. And now today, with this today new, it's completely different. I see also, I bet with your Penny, I wasn't prepared to talk. But 20 years ago, there were some people from museums, but there were a lot of elderly men, excuse me, we all was men with big egos. You talked about the egos, and it was really difficult to get a common project. And I came 20 years later. Here is a new generation. He is really conscious about the traditional analog methods. They know also the digital world, and they are very conscious about the differences, but also about there are also some common thing. Without the analog printing, it didn't have the internet. And I stop at this point, but I think we have to reflect, we discussed the beginning. We had some good ideas about formatting people, and every museum. I say I'm talking about museum, and then what's how the pretty lot shows. We don't have the money to engage people and to pay them. For example, Leipzig Museum Kunst in Leipzig is a very good example, but they have the money to pay some people, and perhaps it's an idea to create a network, and when I can pay half, half Haltezeitschwelle. Yeah, it's all part-time job. But perhaps one in the 20 years of our full-time, I'm not sure. So I think we have to discuss which synergies we can create. No, and that's all. Thank you very much. But it was throwback. The presentation was really a throwback for me. Ja, angelegterweise einen Director of the Museum for Forward Likes, and so we assume Stan as Heike Schnotale, now the new owner of I would say it's not all of them was also than the Haag-Drugulin, the Offizin Haag-Drugulin, but most of it, so the machines, mentioned ledgers. I don't want to go into detail about all the negotiations about this subject. There have been a lot of ideas how to preserve the Offizin Haag-Drugulin as company. And like the other people here in the audience who would tell all that a little bit more precise, because so I was always, of course, we were in the civilian foundation, and from the beginning on of all these negotiations, we were, I would say, the natural partner of politics. You can, yes, a lot of the machines, a lot of the legends of the Offizin under the next, we also doing that back the letters of the National Printing Office. So these negotiations are very emotional, you can imagine, because the heirs, especially Heike SchumacherGebler, they're very emotional. And it was complicated on it. It was a debate, and I think it's not a surprise to all of you. It was a debate about money. And so what I want to say is that, so my experience was that the sense for type, that type has an, let's say, historic value, was not, was not there, because type has always an economic value. Yeah, because that SchumacherGebler said, when I made a big sale of that, what I have, then I will get 200,000 euros. And we as a museum, we had to handle with this, because we can't pay 200,000 euros. Yeah. And so in the end, I'm very honest, we paid with ledgers. We paid with monotype ledgers. But we said we want to guarantee that the matrices, the monotype matrices of these ledgers are still castable. And what I want to say is that I think that the basic problem of all that, the public opinion or the public public opinion about lettering, about type, has always this economic touch in the end. Economic touch, or even it has no value. Yeah, I think the debate would be different when we talked about coins, about historical coins. Yeah, but to say you want to preserve old types, this is you are a bit like afraid. Yeah, people don't just, what do you want? But I must say that give a big compliment to the Palisade of Saxony, because not only the city of Dresden, but also the state office of the preservation of monuments, of cultural monuments in Saxony. And indeed, the city of Leipzig, they were they had really open ears for this problem. So, and we must also say that I think it's the first time in Germany we actually have the case that a printing office is appointed or not appointed as a cultural monument. And I think this case we haven't got before. So I can't remember, but I think it's the first time. And the city of Leipzig, the mayor of Leipzig, was very involved also in these negotiations, because the city of Leipzig has a really long history of tradition in publishing and printing. So the identity of the city is very linked to printing. And this was an advantage in the end for us now. And we hope now that we will be financed for transportation as for also for the renovation of our cellar. And we have to move all out from Dresden until the end of August. And at the moment, I'd say we need 100,050 euros. And then 150,000 euros, yeah. And it's not financed yet, but we hope that the state office for the preservation of monuments in Saxony will finance us, because they are under pressure, because they also signed the contract that we will take over as a museum all that stuff from Dresden. But I would say these were really, for me as well as historian, really hard negotiation, very emotional, and I'm really glad that how that's finished. And but of course I'm sad because I also know the Offizin Haag-Drugulin and Eckehart SchumacherGebler. I've been there for years, and of course the best solution would have been that the Offizin Haag-Drugulin would still exist and work as company. That's so that's from my part. So a little information of the bill to essential. Okay.
Thank you very much, pointing out the aspects and in larger sense, the variety of things to focus on and think about. Now, it's not quite easy because I don't want to disadvantage the other speakers on our list. And so what I may suggest that we take a break now, have a cup of coffee, and let's say in half an hour time, exactly, we carry on with the next talk, and that's going to be Patrick Gursus and colleagues, and we'll have a roundtable staying here. And I basically are mentioning and hinting at problems which are quite a minute. It's continuous. It's a continuous. And so the server get a cup of coffee and exchange new ideas, old ideas, and let's be here together again in half an hour. Thank you very much indeed, my Lord. Heike Schnotale and suddenly now. Thank you for this amazing feature speaking.